Hey guys, back on this green bean again today. I'm gonna get started changing the shocks on it. I got front and rear shocks from Rusty's Off-Road. We're gonna get those put on, so stick around. Okay, now the front shock top bolts right there, and then there's two bolts on top right there. You just remove. Okay everybody, the top bolt here is a 9/16. The two bolts down here are 1/2 inch. So I'm gonna get those off, get this shock off. Okay, we're on these shocks. These are Rusty's Off-Road shocks for this XJ. One little tip I can give you before you try to put these things on there. They paint these right here where the nut goes on the top. Make sure you take a wire wheel and get that paint off there. If not, them bolts are a bitch to get on there. They won't screw down, so I just took a wire wheel, cleaned it up, run the nut all the way down and back up and down a couple of times to clean it up. That way it makes it a lot easier for them nuts to go on there. They really shouldn't. I know they probably do that to keep it from rusting or whatever, but man, that paint on there just makes it a bear to handle. So a 14mm bolt on the top, and it's two 13mm bolts down on the bottom, and they're pretty simple to put in. Just get down here, stick them in from the bottom. They just go right up through the hole there. Oh, let me get myself situated. Just goes right up through the hole right there, and then set the shock down on top of your shock mount here, and there you have it. Then you take your bolt and it slides down from the top, and then just put your nut on the bottom there. There's two of them, and on each side. Right there. Put your nuts on the two bolts there, tighten them down, and then you can go up top and put everything on the top. Got some suspension stuff here we're going to change. Ball joints, sway bar end links, steering stuff. So yeah, stick around. Okay guys, on this XJ, I'm getting started on these sway bar end links. You see right here, that's the sway bar end link right there. This top bolt's a 16mm. So I'm gonna get this off and then get the bolts off on the bottom down here, the bolt off right here, and then get it changed, and I'll be right back. Okay, on the bottom of this sway bar end link, it's a 3/4. So I'll get this nut and bolt out and we'll get this one changed. I've got the sway bar end links replaced on both sides, passenger side, driver side. Now we're going to get on replacing these steering arms here. This one here comes loose here. You got a Carter key, castle nut, and then over there, same thing. Your tie rod end goes in, Carter key, castle nut, smack it with a hammer, knock it loose. Same thing here. Should be able to just smack it with a hammer and knock it loose. I'm getting after this suspension on this Jeep. I got to do upper and lower ball joints, tie rod ends. I've already got the sway bar end links put on there. So yeah, let's get after it. Okay, we're gonna get this wheel off. 19mm lug nuts in here. I took the caps off. There's just two little Allen head screws that hold the center caps on. Okay, now we set the tire out of the way. Got to get in here. Going to replace the upper ball joint and the lower ball joint right there. The boot, you can see the boot's missing off of that lower ball joint. Someone's been in here and changed them before. They don't look too bad, but they came with the kit, so I'm gonna go ahead and put them on here. We just have to remove the caliper. We'll remove the rotor. We have to pull the axle out, and then I can get the ball joint tool in here and get the ball joints out. At the same time, I'm changing the tie rod ends, which again looks like they've been changed before, but I'm also changing the arm here as well, all the way across with the other tie rod end on it. Just changing the whole piece. So let's do it. Okay, we're going to remove the brake caliper. It's just two 12 millimeter bolts, one here, and then I've got a hanger to hang the caliper up with so we can get it out of the way, and then we can get started getting everything else off. Okay, we got the caliper off. I've got it hung on the hanger. Just slide the rotor off. Then we got to get this that straightened out, get it pulled out, take the lock off, the washer. Now we have to take this bolt here off. Okay, now we've got this 36 millimeter nut loose off of the hub. We got to get the 3 bolts on the back of the hub. They're right here, 1, 2, and 1 on the other side. 12.13 millimeter bolts to where we can get the hub off, and then that way we can slide the axle out. To get the hub off, that way we can slide the axle out and get the axle out of our way so we can get the ball joint tool in there and remove the ball joints. Okay, you got to get the tie rod end loose. It's a 19 millimeter nut. The nut with the whole thing was spinning, so I put the jack up underneath there to put some pressure on it, and then got the nut loose and then hit it right here with a hammer to knock it loose. Now we got to get this spindle off so we can get in here and get these ball joints out. This nut down here is a 28 millimeter for the lower ball joint, and for the upper ball joint is a 22 millimeter. And again, you want to break the nuts loose, screw them down, and then hit the spindle here with a hammer to knock them loose from the spindle. You don't want to hit directly on the ball joint ends because you'll flatten them and make them hard to get out. Okay, we got both the bolts loose, the upper and lower ball joint. Take a hammer, knock them loose, and there it goes. You just seen it slide down. Now we can remove the bolt for the upper ball joint. Remove the bolt for the lower ball joint. And the tie rod. And we have the spindle off. Now we get our ball joint tool and get in here, get the ball joints out and get the new ones pressed in there, and then put everything back together. And there you have it. Both ball joints out. Just remember, do your upper ball joint first so you can get the ball joint tool in there like that to get the lower ball joint out. There you have the lower ball joint. It's not good at all. The boot's gone off of it. So I'll get this cleaned up, get a little bit of grease on there, and then we'll do the reverse to put the new ball joints in. Okay, as you can see, I've got both the ball joints out. Now I got the new ball joint here. This is the upper. We start with the upper ball joint, get it set in place. I'll get the tool set up and get that thing pushed back down. All right, now we got both the ball joints in. Now we can put the spindle back on. Got that one tightened. Slide the Carter key in. Bend it down under, like so. And there you have it. Ball joints installed. Now, we can slide our axle back in. Get our hub back on. Bolts from the behind that screw into the hub. .13 millimeter. Oh fuck. Okay, let's take the hub back off, because I forgot to put my dust shield on there. Out the rotor. I'll put the caliper back on. Okay, there we have it. Calipers back on. Ball joints are changed. Put this nut on there, tighten it down. Okay, that's tight. Spacer, this nut, and then Carter key. Just like that. Got new upper and lower ball joints, sway bar end links. I'm going to replace this tie rod. I got the whole bar, so I'm going to replace all of that at one time. So that's for this side, and I will move on to the other side. Okay everybody, as you can see, I've got this passenger side apart, and well, that ball joint there, no good. Look at that. Yep, that's the lower ball joint. Both the lower ball joints were gone. So I'll get these ball joints back in, get everything back together, and then we'll get to changing these steering arms and tie rod ends and everything after that. So stick around. Okay, now I got both the ball joints installed, upper and lower. Got the boots back on them. Now we'll just put the spindle and the spindle back on and get everything back together. Same way you took it apart, just like the other side. And then we'll get after these here. Okay, we got everything. I've got everything back together here. Everything's tightened down. Ball joints, 22 millimeter here. The new bolt for this ball joint was a 30. The old one was a 28. The nut for the tie rod end is a 19. These two here for the caliper are 13 millimeter, or 12 millimeter, I'm sorry, 12 millimeter. Yeah, so the two bolts for the caliper are 12 millimeter. The nut in the center is a 36, and that's it. You just tighten everything back down. So yeah, now I'm gonna get this loose. For the steering stabilizer, the nut right there is a 19, and I'll have to see what size it is for that pitman arm joint there. We'll get it off, and I've got a new bar here sitting right there, so we're replacing this entire bar. Got the nut off of the steering stabilizer here. Now we have to get this nut loose here. We got to take this carter pin out and get this nut loose here. We're replacing this. Somebody didn't even put the grease zerk in there when they put this on there. But we'll get this off and get the other one. I think I've got to use this sleeve here on the new one. So I'll clean this up, get it put on the new bar, and then we'll get it installed. Okay, I've got this off. Steering stabilizer goes there. That's your tie rod end for the passenger side. And this goes up here to the pitman arm. I'm gonna have to take this sleeve off and put it on this new bar. Just loosen this sleeve here, loosen these two bolts here. They're 15 millimeters, and then should be able to twist it on off of there. Take that joint out, and I'll replace that joint. That joint's gone. It's bad. And yeah, we'll go from there. I'll get it together and be right back. Okay guys, we have got it. This is replaced. Tie rod ends, lower ball joint, upper ball joint, sway bar end link. We've got this right here, and I'm sorry, the name has left my brain. Replace this. We replaced this entire bar here because it's the tie rod end is made into it, so we had to replace that entire bar. Then we got the sway bar end link here, the tie rod end here, lower ball joint, upper ball joint, and that completes the suspension on this puppy, or front suspension. Now I get to tackle those welded on rear shocks. Yay! Let's get after it. Replaced the pressure line for the AC. That's it right here. It was a very simple process. I forgot to bring my camera out here. I had my phone and shot a short on it, but forgot to bring the camera out here. So it's just a 12mm bolt here. First you have to make sure the system's empty. You don't want that stuff blowing up in your face. It's very toxic and it make you really sick. So you want to make sure the system's empty before you go messing with it. 12mm bolt here, 13mm bolt here, and then right down here behind this battery, underneath the radiator hose, there's a fitting that goes right here. And there's little white clips that you push in there. They come in many different colors, but you just slide them up in there, and as you push it in, you pull out on the line and it comes loose. Then there is a pressure sensor here, and you can either get a new sensor and put it on there, or just use the old one. And then that's pretty much it. Then you need to get the system charged, and that's that. Okay, we're back on the XJ. I had to adjust the emergency brake. The way you do that is your emergency brake cable comes in through here. There's a 13mm bolt here. Just take a screwdriver. I took this little pry bar and wedged it here to keep this thing from turning. Slid the 13mm up on here and just tightened it down. And it'll tighten up, and that'll adjust your emergency brake cable. And now the emergency brake works. So now we got to move on to the rear shocks. The rear shocks is going to be a trick because someone has welded them on there. Both of them are welded to the body of the Jeep, so I'm gonna have to do that. And then I've got to do put a 2-inch, he's got 2-inch blocks he wants to put here to raise the back end of it up 2 inches. So I'm gonna get the cutting tool and see if I can't cut these welds and get these shocks loose. Happy, happy, joy, joy. Okay, I've got the shock cut loose. Now I just have to clean all this up. I'm probably gonna have to drill a couple more holes and tap them so I can get some bolts in there to hold the new shocks on there. But that's where I'm at now. Okay, we're back underneath the truck here, and here's what we're dealing with. I've got this big clump of weld right here I got to cut off. I've already ground this down. You see right there where the bolt was. So I'm going to have to drill that out and try to put another bolt in there. But first I'm going to cut all this off. I'm going to try to cut some of it with a cutting wheel on the die grinder, and then try to grind it down after that. So let's get after it. Okay, it's another day. I'm on the back of this XJ. He wanted me to put 2-inch lift blocks in there. So put these underneath the leaf spring here. Take these 4 bolts here loose. Drop the axle down. Put this between the axle and the leaf spring. And then he's got some longer U-bolts. To use to tighten it down. So I jacked the vehicle up. I've got it on a jack stand. I've got a jack underneath the axle, so when I take these loose, I think I'm gonna take a wire wheel and clean these up a little bit, and then we're gonna just get these off, and then I'll let the jack down, let the axle fall far enough to get that block in there, and then jack it back up. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, I've got the U-bolts, the old U-bolts off, as you can see, and I've went ahead and cleaned this up a little bit. So now I'm going to drop the axle down. It's just a 2-inch block that we're putting in there. Okay, I've got the block in, got it jacked back up. This is an older style block. I guess it has this piece that goes underneath it. But on the blocks, the high side goes to the rear, the short side goes to the front. Then when we go to put our U-bolts in, we put our rear U-bolt through here, in behind the brake line. Slide it up through there. We got our plate. Set our plate down on there. Like so. Just like that. Make sure this comes up through the center of the hole. Then put your washers on there, slide them down, and then put your nuts on there. Then we can slide our front one, again, same spot where the factory one went, underneath the brake line, slide it up in there. Go. Put our washers on there. Put the nuts on there. Get your washers on there, put the nuts on there. Which I think I'm gonna put that factory washer back on there because that one looks a little too thick. Just these threads are mauled up on these U-bolts. And then we can put the wheel back on. Now we just tighten those down. We can put the wheel back on and then start on the other side. Okay, I've got the other shock off. I've cut the welds. Now I'm grinding this down here. Then I'll drill the holes and tap them for the shock, and then get started on the lift kit on the driver's side. Okay guys, I've got all the welds ground down, the shock cut off and the welds ground down now. Well, you see where the two holes were for the bolts before. I guess they broke off when they were changing the shocks before, and instead of drilling and tapping, they just wanted to booger weld the shocks to the bottom of the Jeep, so that's what they did. Anyway, I'm going to drill these two holes, re-tap them like I did on that side over there, and put the bolts in there. So let's get after it. Okay, I'm on the other side of the Jeep. Gonna do the 2-inch lift on here. It's just like the other side. I'm gonna clean up these threads a little bit, hit them with some PB Blast, and then we got to get these bolts off of these nuts off of these U-bolts so we can lower the jack and get the block in between there. It goes in between the axle and the leaf spring there. So here we go. Okay, I've sprayed them down with PB Blaster and I'm gonna try to break them loose. I don't have a socket deep enough to reach all the way down there, so I got to do it with these wrenches again. This piece goes in here on the bottom. The thick part goes towards the back, and it says front right here on the bottom there. And you just get your block in there if you can. A little bit of a snug fit here. Okay, there you have it. 2-inch lift blocks on here. I got to jack it up, put the tire on, put the shock back, put the shock on it, and then I'm done with this puppy. To be honest with you, this side was a bear. It didn't want to, the box did not want to line up. And it took a lot of jacking it up, positioning it, jacking it up again, letting it down. I even had to tie a ratchet strap to a tow hook on the front of my truck to pull the axle back. It just did not want to line up. But finally I got all the pegs lined up, got it in there, got everything torqued down or tightened down. And you see me use a breaker bar. I think these things are supposed to be torqued to like 100 foot-pounds or 120 foot-pounds, something like that. I know with that breaker bar I put every bit of that on there. So yeah, now we'll go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and jack up the rear end, put the tires back on it, and then finish up that shock, and then say bye-bye to this piece. All right, let's get after it. Okay guys, finally got done with the green Jeep. He's on his way to pick it up. I don't know if you can see this, it's dark. I got the shocks there. Shocks there, which it's all in the video. The rear shocks, front shocks, 2-inch lift on the rear. Let's see again. I did the front shocks, rear shocks, 2-inch lift on the rear. I got the pod lights on the hood working. I replaced 3 window regulators, replaced an AC line. I had to cut the rear shocks off the rear, ground down the welds, drill and tap new holes to put the new shocks on there, and change the front suspension, tie rod ends, upper and lower ball joints, and sway bar end links. So yeah, he's on his way to get it now, and it's bye-bye, out of here, gone, hasta la vista. I'm glad to see this piece out of here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.